How to talk so that everyone wants to listen to you. How to gain this instant aura or this respect among your peers or in your social circle. Uni, work. 10 tips to teach you how to achieve that. Number 1, use humor all the time. Tightness is not attractive. You have to loosen up a bit. When it comes to this type of social gatherings or social circles, you don't want to be a tight guy, stressed about something, who is always tight on money, tight on budget. People like chill guys. Heck, especially women like chill guys. You have to be a bit more nonchalant, carefree. You gotta let people know that things are gonna be okay. And you have to speak in that type of manner, which means joke around, joke about yourself or about your colleagues, about your friends, about your classmates, whatever. As an example, at work, whenever we grabbed lunch with my colleagues, one of them would always eat the same thing. And every time we had lunchtime, I would say like, let me guess, rice, right? And it was like a small little funny joke. It doesn't make anyone feel bad. It doesn't make anyone feel abused. And so you have to be a bit more comfortable with making fun of people, making fun of yourself, throwing jokes here and there, just loosening the situation up a bit, being okay with whatever people might say about you or they might joke about you or whatever. This type of things are okay, and you have to be welcoming. The moment someone says something and you get offended or you get defensive, that's when people, even without saying any stuff, they automatically realize, okay, this guy's a blocker, too defensive, he has ego problems, he has issues, and you don't want to put out that impression of yourself, do you? You want to give them an impression of a carefree, chill, nonchalant guy. Don't be too tight, don't be too stressed, be a bit more relaxed. Next up, tip number 2 is know when it's time to stop. There was this one super annoying girl that I used to work with before. The moment she would start something, she just couldn't finish it. I remember someone was asking a question like, hey, do you have anything to add? Any concerns? And she was like, yeah, I actually do have something. So why do you think this thing happens? Yada, yada, yada. Like, what do you think is there? Like, why, like, you know, hey, yo, just ask your question. It's just one thing. Don't make it too extended. Just ask one thing and let the other people answer the question for you. Don't try to speak just for the sake of speaking or talking or to fill out some space and not make it feel awkward or something like that. Because the more you talk, the higher is the mountain that you're trying to climb. From the book 48 Laws of Power. Law number 4, always say less than necessary. Leave some room for mystery. Leave people wanting to hear something from you. Like when your favorite TV show ends, you get a bit nostalgic. You start doing some research about the actors, about the book, about the novel. Or when you finish your book, if it's a good book, you're like, I want to read something similar. But if you put too much of yourself out there, you will look like a TV show which is still airing, but no one's showing up to actually tune into you. Keep it simple, keep it short, so that people want to listen to you more and more and more. Tip number 3 is gonna be never, ever, ever pull out your phone mid-conversation. As an example, when you're talking to people and they want to say something like, hey, you know what, I found this funny meme, and they're like, hey, you know what, it was actually funny, let me pull out my phone and show it to you. They pull out their phone, they start looking for this thing, and all of you are just sitting there like, are we supposed to change the topic or are we supposed to just wait for this guy? It gets a bit awkward. To make people want to listen to you is gonna be a difficult task, and by pulling out your phone or trying to pull out your phone and showing something, you're not accomplishing this task. At best, you're making people feel bored. Tip number 4 is gonna be ask open-ended questions. Don't ask questions like yes or no, right? Like, hey, do you think it's good? Yes. Okay. End of conversation. Ask questions which stimulate them to come up with more answers, more options. So instead of asking, hey, did you like that TV show or did you like that fashion show or whatever, instead of that, you could ask, hey, what do you think would change that fashion show? More people would start tuning up to that thing. Like, you have to ask questions which don't just make them give you an answer like yes or no, but the type of question that makes them or stimulates their brain to continue the dialogue, to continue the conversation. Otherwise, it's gonna be just yes or no. And especially, this is especially right when it comes to talking to women, because, hey, do you like this place or do you like the city that you live in? You can't just ask boring questions. You have to come up with something interesting. So instead of yes or no type of questions, ask how or what do you think. Point number 5 is to be random. There is no agenda. There is no clear-cut rules on what you have to say. I'm willing to bet that saying some random things is even better than just saying some things out of guidelines like what's your age, where do you study. Once I had this example. I was in uni back in the days and I was grabbing coffee by the coffee machine and there was this girl. She just came up to that place, and if she didn't say anything, I would probably also stay silent. But then instead of saying like, hey, we never met before, what's your name, etc., yada, it was raining outside, and she was like, when it's raining, it has a special effect on human's body, and so your temperature changes and the way you feel about XYZ. And I was already invested in that thing. I'm like, whoa, she's talking about some interesting stuff. Like, there was no pressure to get to know each other. There was no pressure to say something. I was just peacefully listening to her. It was kind of random, but still it made me invested and interested in her story, in what she has to say. Tip number 6 is gonna be to have a punchline. Listen, if you're telling a story story without a punchline, there's absolutely no reason for you to be telling stories. There has to be an encore at the end of the show. If there's no like closing performance, people are gonna be really disappointed. Nobody thinks like that consciously, but unconsciously your brain's gonna be like, yo, where's the dessert? And so you have to tell stories or speak in a way where you can also present some conclusions at the end. It has to be a punchline, it has to be some joke, because sometimes when you tell stories, it might be scary, it might be funny or something. There's this pressure that's being built up in people's minds, and so you have to release that pressure. Keep building up some story, and at the end you have some punchline. There has to be some revelation. People have to know something. Ah, okay, now I know. Or, oh yeah, that was funny. Like, there has to be some encore or conclusion at the end. But if you tell stories with no direction, with no end goal, everyone is going to be bored and disappointed. Conversation, talking, speaking to people, these things happen obviously face to face, but these are also subconscious. Like, you can't really explain these things. People have to feel it. And when you have good stories with punchlines, people can not only understand that, but also feel that this was funny, this was rewarding, this was informative or persuasive. You have to present with something at the end. Tip number 7 is gonna be vulnerable. It lets other people open up and be more comfortable in social gatherings. If you're the first one to speak up about something that's hanging in the air, trust me, other people will relate to you. As an example, you go to a restaurant and these are your first day colleagues or like first day at your uni or something. You notice that the price is very high or it's expensive, and everyone's like sitting there, oh, should I say that, or will they think I'm broke, or will they think I'm this? But then like, hey, you know what, this place is kind of expensive, should we find another place? And there's gonna be people who are like, thank you for mentioning this. Don't be afraid to speak about what you feel or what you think about any type of situation. It is what it is. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. If you think it's too uncomfortable, say it. If you think it's too expensive, say it. Who cares? If you think you did something weird in the morning, mention it so that other people can also mention this type of stuff. It opens the door for everyone else to mention whatever they're dealing with or any shortcomings that they might have. Next up is don't overshare your problems. I once asked an acquaintance, what is your plan for the weekend? And she just pulled out this whole novel about what she's trying to do and where she's gonna drive up and then what kind of party that she's gonna visit. And I'm like, yo, I just asked one question, but she just pulled out this whole freaking life story. I want to be cool to people, I want to be kind, I want to be listening, etc., but there's only so much capacity that I have when it comes to my brain power. Like, I don't have infinite resources. I also have to do some stuff. So the moment you start oversharing, that's the moment people don't really want to listen to you anymore. Do you really want to be listening to someone else's problems? Of course, if it's a close friend or a family member, it's okay. But when you're in social gatherings, if you want to make people pay attention to you, don't be complaining, don't be oversharing your problems. Keep it classy. And the last one is to talk like you're presenting a show. There is a script in a show. People talk about some certain things, certain topics, so that you want to grab or capture people's attention. There's pause, there's suspense, there's drama. You have to use the same exact tactics. Try to pause whenever possible. Change your tonality if you have to. Take people to a ride. Your voice is your interpretation of how you understand the world. If your world is too chaotic, you're gonna be full of stress in your voice, you're gonna be fast, nobody's gonna understand anything. If you speak in a tonality like this, it's gonna be pretty boring. Nobody wants to listen to this type of thing. So you have to give them ups and downs, fast-pitched voices and low ones. I know it sounds weird, it sounds very superficial or non-existent, but what you have, which is your voice, it can be your magnet to make other people get attracted to you, or it can be a magnet which pushes away the very same thing it doesn't like. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.